Hmm. I don't know how inspired any of us are feeling this morning.
I don't know. Are we live?
I don't know.
Madam Mayor, it is 8:33 and we are live.
There's the official announcement.
There
Good
we go.
morning, everyone. I'm glad you have such a nice smile on your face. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the pre-agenda meeting of October 18th, 2024. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Betty Resch,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sarah Maliga,
Present.
There he is.
Commissioner Christopher McVoy is absent at the moment. Commissioner Mimi May,
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz is absent at the moment.
Yeah, I saw Chris last night at the opening. He's well aware of it, but maybe he's just running late. All right, ladies. All right, ladies. Good morning. And
Morning.
let's just touch a little bit so folks know about the opening, the little reception last night at the Lula's, which is interesting. Um, quite well attended. Todd English was there. Bhavin Shah, who owns the building, is there. And they seem to be very excited about being in Lake Worth. They seem to be part of what people are sort of calling like not the renaissance of Lake Worth, but the sort of uplifting of the city. Between the museum and the Gulfstream and the new fish restaurant on South J Street, we've got Ocean redoing their stuff on Lucerne. We've got there was another restaurant, I think, opening a coffee shop is opening on South 8th on East Coast, just south of the Echo building. There is work being done in the 1000 building for the Vanilla Ice group. They're a little unhappy about the progress of their permits with the city. I hope that's duly noted. What they decided to do, they said, was instead of doing they're doing like permit as they go, because they were waiting for everything and it was taking a long time. So they have a demolition permit. So they're in there and they're waiting for their permit to do the kitchen on the first floor. So I hope that we're taking good care of them. Like I hope we're taking good care of everybody that applies for a permit in the city.
I thought there was a story that says Bazaar is opening again.
Oh, Bizarre! Oh, it's open.
Yes.
Not so. It's called Not Too Bizarre.
Not too bizarre.
It's
Only
so good.
only for dinner.
Oh, I don't know.
I thought I read only for dinner, not yet for lunch.
CWS is under construction as well.
Which one?
The old CWS.
Yes.
There.
Yep. They're working on that. And Una Bakery's back open. Thank God. I hope she's doing okay. So it's a bustling little food centric city that we've got going on, and that's a good thing to be noted for. Brings people downtown. After I left that little reception last night, I went up to the beach, and it was magnificent. It was so windy and cool. It was and a full moon. It was beautiful. The drum circle was going fine. Don't. Waiting for my dog to stop barking. She's deaf, so if I tell her to stop barking, it doesn't matter. Hold on one second. I'm gonna mute myself for a second.
We can't hear her.
We can't hear.
You can't hear her?
No.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's good to know. So, but I did not attend the business meeting last night, and I would like to hear from the ladies, the commissioners, and that went to it, and just hear what went on. That I know Jamie was there as well.
Well, maybe Jamie should lead since he was the one who was overdoing. He was the one overseeing the meeting. He was
Jamie,
and such.
fill us in, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So yeah, I thought it was a very good meeting. I feel, and speaking with the different members of the Business Advisory Board after the meeting, we kind of all kind of felt the same, that's how I think that board was intended. That's kind of what they were intended to do. This is the first meeting we've kind of had outside of City Hall.
Yeah.
So all the previous meetings have kind of been just the members and Carmen before me, just all in the conference room, just talking. But we never really had any, we had Joan come to one, had William come to one. I know Vice Mayor Malega attended, I believe, two of them. But it was just basically staff and the board members, but no actual business owners from the city ever attended. So this was an opportunity to actually say, oh, wow. And it was great. And we got a lot of input. We heard from a lot of the businesses, and I think that was, you know, a lot of the businesses said they enjoyed it because they had never had an opportunity to kind of be in one location like that, kind of like at a forum, and actually hear what other business owners around them, issues they dealt with, things they felt were positive, things they wanted to work on. So it was a really cool, to me, it was a good opportunity to kind of get a lot of input that we typically would not receive. And it seemed like it was
So
pretty
people
well
that were not on
received.
the board, so other than like business owners, other than the board attended?
A ton of
yes.
them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a packed meeting. So that was a cool thing. And I think, again, that's what I think the purpose of the board was to reach out to all the business owners in the city and kind of find out what they're dealing with or what kind of issues they're having, be it, you know, with just business in general or dealings with the city or permits or this or that. So
Wow.
just trying to find out the best ways to kind of move forward and make things a lot more efficient. So I loved it.
The record should reflect that Commissioner McVoy is now here.
Been here for a little bit, but
Yes, thank you. I
Well,
saw I
yeah.
let him in.
I didn't want to interrupt Jamie.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay,
I was just
so
giving an overview, but obviously you guys all attended as well. I'd be curious to see
what kind of things were discussed?
Okay, so multiple things. We kind of went through our regular agenda, which you know, just set up like a regular board, so they kind of go over old business, approve the minutes from previous meeting. Some of the old business, some of the things we couldn't jump on because we need Erin Allen for some of that, like the Chamber of Commerce conversation and stuff like that. And she obviously wasn't able to attend yet. She said she'll probably make the next meeting. So we kind of jumped down to some of the previous things we had talked about in earlier meetings. As far as new business, it was kind of an update on, you know, I'm going to have Ed Liberty, our electric utility director, attend the next meeting because there was a conversation about electric rates for commercial, like commercial versus residential, how that whole thing works, why it appears that we're under FPL for residential, over FPL for commercial, and that whole dynamic. So I feel it's better that he attend that to kind of go through all of that and see if there are different things we can do for businesses as far as it comes to our electric utility. And then obviously parking was the big thing on the agenda and our future possible downtown parking program. And really just getting, this conversation it's been talked about for a long time, but it had never actually been brought forward to the businesses in an open forum like this to actually get their input and what they actually feel as far as how this would work, different ideas they might have. One of the big ones was employee parking, how that would work. So there were a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions. And again, it's just, I like forums like that where people are free to kind of come and speak and give their input. So another thing was Tiana and her, some of her leisure staff was there to kind of go over upcoming events, both downtown and at the beach. So
Was there any
very
discussion about the possibility of downtown parking being not free anymore?
Oh yeah, that was a big portion of it. Yeah, that was
Right,
a big
that's-
portion of it. The parking garage obviously coming on the heels of the approval from the CRA meeting last week, as well as the first reading of our meeting. So there's discussion of the parking garage, obviously, and then yeah, the downtown paid parking program and how people thought of it. So yeah, it was a good first step because again, it had never been brought forward to the actual business owners before. So
And
we
what
had
was
kind of ripped that
what was the
band-aid off.
response to paid parking downtown?
Both. I mean, you had people that obviously were opposed. You had some people that have seen it happen before. They understand it's coming. They understand it's kind of just where everything's moving these days. Aren't a lot of locations that have free parking anymore. I did kind of, when the questions kind of came about, well, you know, why or what's the reason or less, I did go into the revenue side of things. And when people had brought up, you know, beautification and more trees and dropping the limit from 4 hours to 2 hours. And can we do more enforcement? And can we do this? And can we do that? I did mention that all comes with the cost. And typically cities utilize the revenue they generate from parking to put back into that operation in order to improve infrastructure and a lot of that other stuff downtown. So just kind of giving them the ideas and some of the things we've talked about just on the city side. But obviously this is very preliminary still. But we needed to start the conversation.
Yeah, I know we've been everyone's sort of whispering about it for years, but it's, and
I,
one of the
I,
things
I
that
went in ready. I had my vest on. I was ready. I knew
Chris,
this was not going to be
I'm
a fun
sure, I'm sure.
conversation to have.
And one thing that I was thinking, and I've, some citizens' feedback that I've had, and, if we do start paid parking, that perhaps we can think about the hours, like maybe for the downtown businesses to go to, to go to lunch, maybe residents could have either lowered prices or, I see you, Chris, lowered prices or, some concessions made to our citizens and
Yeah.
to help our small businesses. Chris, I see your hands up.
Thank you. I guess, yes, I was there for at least part of or fair amount, I think, of the parking discussion. There definitely was concern about paid parking. I hear Jamie on concerns about, the city needs revenue. So yes, but I would just request that before we move forward on some of these things, and as part of the moving forward with the WMOTA and associated parking garage, we really do a lot of due diligence on analyses. When we say that it would generate income, let's see balance sheets that say, okay, this is what it costs for maintenance of such and such a parking garage, or this is what it costs to maintain the various types of parking enforcement and whatnot. And this is what it brings in based on some, not just, numbers out of the air, but numbers from other communities or wherever you get numbers like that. But that we're not talking in generalities, that we're talking in actual numbers. And I think the sooner we start getting those numbers, the better. I heard discussions of, well, what if we build a parking garage but made it free parking? There was quite a bit of appeal to that.
Oh, sure there was.
I'm sure there was too, but that needs numbers behind it. What would it take? What would the investment be? Where would that money come from? How would it be balanced against expenses? How would it be balanced against spending money on the roads or on beautification? I tell you, the things that I hear consistently is people want the city to look better, and there's a concern that the city has to do some of that, not all of it. Residents has to do some too, but that keeps coming up. The other thing that I hear a lot, which I'd like to come back to later, is people have no idea that the WMOTA stuff is going on. So if we think we have a community that is following and informed, we are kidding ourselves. Not to speak poorly about the community, but just the reality is most people do not know that a very big project is being considered for downtown with a substantial public investment.
And apparently not, this is a thing that I have said in public more than once. And I was guilty of it as well. People at the I don't know anything what's going on. Well, you're not paying attention. If you truly are interested, just take a look at the agenda on the website for meetings that are coming up. Is there something there that's interesting to me? Is there something I should take note of? Communication, we know this is the communication between how do we get out to the people that something is happening, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And do we call everybody and say, hey, this is happening? It's been on the website. It's been on the CRA website. It's been talked about for the past 8 months. I think that people need, I don't disagree with you, Chris, but I think that people do need, and I speak for myself as well, to take a little responsibility to find out what's going on. Most people are happy that the lights are on and the garbage is picked up and the water's good. And they like living here, but they're not involved as much as we have a big group of very involved citizens in our city, which is a wonderful thing. But, how do you, I'm afraid to even ask you what suggestions you have to, if we know about it and we think it's interesting or important, why, what are we going to do to get that word out besides putting it on the website? I think people need to be a little responsible and not come at the end and go, hey, what's happening?
I think your point is well taken. What I can tell is that we are not that different from other communities. We are probably more engaged, have more engaged residents than others. But most people are living their lives in hope that city services run reasonably well, and that if anything big is happening, the word will get out through the newspaper or through the radio or through who knows what, and they'll know. My feeling is empirical. We as leaders of the city, if we come to be aware that we are involved in making decisions about a very big project with very big public funds involvement, and we come to be aware that much of the public doesn't even know that it's happening, much less evaluate the pros and cons, I think it's incumbent on us to pause a little bit, tap the brakes a little bit, and say, hey, we may have done all sorts of wonderful things to reach out, but it hasn't worked
Well, what's your suggestion?
out to people. So
What's
that?
What's your suggestion for improving that?
Very simply that, not be in a hurry. The people that I hear from either say, which is the most of them, I've never heard of it, don't know anything about it, might be good, might not be. Oh, it involves a lot of public funds. Well, that's interesting. And others say, who have heard a little bit more, they feel that it's being very much rushed through. And that's on us as a commission. We have the ability to say, all right, guys, this doesn't need to be done immediately. Let's make sure that we do and measure that we're reaching out to the community and that they are aware.
You still haven't answered my question. How do you suggest that broad information be published? I mean, people, if you're saying that people say, I never heard of this, apparently now they've heard of it. How did they hear of it? And how do you suggest we branch out?
I've been asking a lot of people, and just out of curiosity, to try and get a sense of, is it just me, or is it that people haven't? And I'm getting, blank looks from everybody.
Well, what's your suggestion?
Huh?
What's the suggestion that you have for improving it?
The biggest one is, don't move forward with the illusion that we've done enough to let people know, because it would not take very much of an effort to figure out, no, in fact, that hasn't worked. A small number of people who follow all this stuff, yes, are very aware, but most people are not. And it does affect most people. It's most people's resources, and it's most people's town.
I'll ask you again, what's your suggestion to improve it?
I'm not staff. It's not my responsibility to be the one informing the community. I have put stuff out on
I'm
Facebook.
asking about what is your suggestion for, in general, for staff, for the city, what's your suggestion to make it more broadly known? Not us on an individual level, but the city. And because getting information out, not just on this, I see Sarah, getting information out is hard. I know Sarah and Jamie both have their hands up. Who went first? You fight it out.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say this. We can all sit here and talk about the fact that some people don't know. What I don't hear from Mr. McVoy is the people that he does talk to who are in support. It's always about who's the naysayers. So on Tuesday, I took it upon myself, because I wanted people to attend the Business Advisory Board meeting, that I spent 3 hours myself passing out flyers and going to businesses all downtown and inviting them and making sure they knew about the meeting, because it was important for me that they knew. So if it's very important to you that a certain select community or people who aren't paying attention to the news, the newspaper, social media, email blast, there's 7 different ways people can know about WMOTA. And if they do not want to do any of those 7 ways, then they just simply don't want to know about it, in my opinion. So we have to take responsibility, like you said, Madam Mayor, for ourselves and what we know about the city that we live in. But if you as an elected are so gung-ho on, I need this community to know, well, then take some ownership. And this is my opinion. Like I did, I wanted business owners to show up. I sent out emails. I knocked on doors. And you know what? 90% of the people who I talked to on Tuesday didn't know about the event. But guess what? 90% of them showed up last night because they knew, and because I went to them and I said, please show up. This is important. Be part of this conversation. And they did. People who had never attended meetings. I'm talking people who own businesses in this town for 5 up to 15 years who have never come to one city commission meeting. but they came because I knocked on their door. I gave them a flyer. I told them how important it was. And I explained the business advisory board and how badly we needed to hear from the business owners. And I'm not going to speak, Jamie, Mimi, Chris, you were there. You saw how many people were there. And it wasn't just the same 5 or 6 people who represent the business on a normal basis when it comes to things. So I think that, we can't just put stuff on staff. If you want somebody to know, Chris, host a meeting. Go to the Guatemala Maya Center and say, I need to have a meeting about this event. Or, do something, go on the news, go on the radio stations, the Haitian radio. I do it once a quarter to make sure the community knows what's going on. So we can't just say it's all on staff. That's why we are elected, is to be the voice of the people. So we need to take that ownership.
And a piece of that ownership is when you get information that people in the community don't know, then you have to say it's not responsible on our part to move forward in a big hurry.
Jamie, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I will say that just in speaking with, in all the meetings I'm in with counterparts around the county and outside of this county, just in Florida in general, we do as a city go well beyond, as far as trying to notify people things, well beyond what pretty much any other municipality of any size that I'm aware of does. They don't go to the links we've done, and that's city website, that's all of our social media platforms, that's flyers, like we had flyers for the event last night, that's announcing them at commission meetings, that's going to the different neighborhood association meetings, and making sure that we get all the information to them so they can then push it out to all of their contact lists, because there might be people on their neighborhood association contact list that never, like you say, never attend our city meetings or something. So we even try to get through to them. So we dealt with the same thing back during the 4-year roadway infrastructure bond as well, trying to get people out to those meetings. And at some point in time, you can only do so much to inform people and make sure it is everywhere. And then we can't make people show up. Basically, all we can do is make sure that we have covered everything. So when someone says, well, I didn't know, I looked here. And I just want to make sure when they say I looked here and didn't see anything, that we have already covered whatever that here is. So we're going through as many links as we possibly can to make sure we reach as many people as possible. But at the end of the day, like you said, Madam Mayor, it's kind of up to people whether they want to attend or not. We can't force people to come to our meetings. All we can do is make sure that we've done our due diligence as far as pushing out this information on as many platforms as possible. And obviously, if you guys have more ideas, we are all ears as far as if there are better ways we can, or even more avenues we can push it out, because we will go, to get people out. Like last night was fantastic. You guys saw how many people were in attendance. So we'll do whatever we have to do to get as many people to these meetings as possible.
Yeah, I mean, again, give us a suggestion, Christopher.
Okay, you did ask for a suggestion, and Jamie said something very useful. And I too, attending the business meeting, business advisory council one, was impressed that, there were a lot of the usual suspects there, but there were a lot of people that one doesn't normally see, and that's a success. That is getting people out. And if that was due to Vice Mayor Malega's efforts of knocking on business doors, kudos to her. That's great. You wanted a suggestion, Madam Mayor. Having taken stock that the first meeting that had backup to it with any details was on Monday, October 7th, in the middle of hurricanes coming. There was a voting meeting a day after that. There was another voting meeting a week after that. What clearly could be done is an effort to have a public meeting, a public charrette, that the public can come and ask questions, can see the backup in advance, reasonable amount of time in advance, so they can look at it and ask questions. That would be a very sensible next step of a way of getting out, and advertise that meeting widely, and then, like
Advertise how? That's not the question. My question is advertise how? How do you get the word out? You can have all the public meetings you want, but if people are not that either interested or, I'm looking for suggestions for how to, if you're saying that people don't know about it, right? And I'm saying, how do you get people to know about it if they don't look at the website, if they don't look at social media, if they don't look at, as we push things out, what are you suggesting to get the word out? That's my very specific question.
And I would say everything possible that we have
But what
available.
is, that's not, that, what does that mean? I'm looking for specific, I'm looking for
just gave
concrete
a-
suggestions,
Jamie just gave a list of ways
which
that
is what we're doing now.
if you advertised a meeting that says, hey, here's where we are in this process. We are considering doing this. We now have some concrete proposals available. We would like to have a public meeting, have it at the casino or have it someplace where there's plenty of room, and have ways for people to, if people know how to do outreach meetings. You put up posters along the wall. It says, this is what we're doing with this aspect of this. This is what the financing looks like. You put all that stuff out in advance so people can look at it in advance. You let people know the meeting is there. I think you would get a lot of turnout at this point. And that would be a serious effort on our part to say, hey, now that we have some details, let's not move so quickly forward on votes on it. Let's let people have a look, be informed, give us feedback, crowdsource information. Hey, we noticed this, or hey, I heard something. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I heard something at the meeting last night that I'd never thought of. I thought it was a good suggestion. Somebody suggested that with the parking garage, rather than using most of the block for the garage, that the incremental cost to fill out the rest of the block with the garage and allow access from whatever that is, First Avenue South, I guess, would have a lot of benefits and not a lot more cost. Yes, you got to figure out what are you going to do with the historic properties that we were thinking of putting there. But the suggestion was a pretty good one. That's the kind of crowd's information. Now that there's some details and something on paper, that's the time to have a meeting, a big public meeting, and let people, maybe you have two of them, I don't know, let people kick the ideas around, give some feedback. That would be very possible to do, and you advertise it all the usual ways that we advertise things.
Which it has been on every CRA agenda for the past 6 months.
But it's very different to have meetings. Hey, we're in the process of working on a project.
But Chris, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you. What the content of the meeting is one thing. You say let the people know. You say put a poster on the wall. That's my question. I mean, and it's not pop quiz, but I think I just want to point out how difficult it is to get that kind of publicity if people are not paying attention anyway. To get it out, we don't. It's too expensive to send a postcard to everybody in the city saying this is happening, and most of them will go, "That's interesting. Let me go do my laundry now." So I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. I think we've talked about it a lot, and I think I understand your point. I also understand. I'm listening to Mr. Brown about what we do, and I still, if you want to suggest at some point not to do the whole hour on this, but if you have a concrete, skywriting, what? I would like the answer to that. If you have a good suggestion.
That says that we have details at this point. Here's where you
Where are you putting it?
Where are you putting the meeting? I don't know, at the casino.
No, where are you putting this notice? We do have a notice out. There was
you don't have a notice of a public meeting. That would get people to and say.
But what do you want to talk about at that meeting, Chris, that we haven't talked about already?
You would talk about the concrete proposals that are on the table now so that people have something to get their teeth into and look at and give feedback on.
Madam,
you haven't, yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Sarah.
Sorry.
in the presence of time, I mean, we're at
Right.
9:02. Can we move on from this and
I'd like to, yeah,
have something that's very pressing that I need consistency or,
sure, sorry. Been on this for half hour.
is that
What's up?
okay?
Yeah.
We all know that we have a major election coming up on November 5th, and in having a conversation with staff 2 weeks ago and with Mr. Waters and with Elizabeth at the city attorney's office, we have 2 medical marijuana dispensaries already in the city, and recreational marijuana is a completely different animal. It is more like a vape shop with neon lights and advertisement, and here we are. So I had asked for our city's current code, which was sent, and it's currently prohibits medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facilities from locating within the city. If the commission chooses this prohibition, it could be expanded to include medical and non-medical marijuana. So there is language in there that just says medical. And given the fact that we have the Lord's Place and we have the hub and we have so many people here who are already fighting recovery, I would like for us to get consensus to add recreational to the medical. And from my understanding, and Glenn's here, the two facilities that we have will still be allowed to sell recreational. It will just prohibit us from having 3 more people come and try to sell, if that's what we want as a commission, people to sell recreational marijuana. I'm opposed to having it in our city. We already have 3 kava shops, 3 vape shops, and 2 medical dispensaries within 7 miles. And because this is coming up quickly, I just wanted to get everybody else's opinion, not personal opinion on if you're supporting or not, but how do we protect our city with this possibly passing? So I just wanted to get everybody else's thoughts and see what it was.
Anybody?
I mean, I think that, my personal opinion aside, I think we don't want to saturate our city with any one type of business. And I think, as Vice Mayor Maliga said, we already have kava shops, vape shops, and 2 medical marijuana dispensaries, which will be able to sell recreational marijuana. So it will be available. So I kind of agree with her where, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been to any places where it's completely legal. It's all the entire city smells like. So, that I agree with Commissioner or Vice Mayor Maliga.
I would suggest just, I mean, alcohol is another problem. We have plenty of bars and restaurants that sell alcohol. We have, I think, perhaps a distance requirement, which would be maybe larger than we have. I mean, we're saying, you know, marijuana is a different category than alcohol. Okay, fine, if that's the way you think about it. But what I would suggest would be a very broad distance waiver.
Well, we allow for 2 because according to William, they're non-conforming uses. They're not allowed in the city. So there are 2 that are grandfathered in, but the language is only specifies medical. So according to, again, what Mr. Williams said, and what Elizabeth said is we could add the language of recreational to the ordinance we already have. Maybe Glenn
What
can.
is it? What does it say?
Right,
I mean, I don't have,
you could
Oh, hi,
either
Glenn.
say, okay, hello. If you want to, you know, make an effort to restrict it, you would either add the word recreational or take the word medical out. Just it's marijuana would be restricted. So nobody knows if the amendment passes what that domino effect's going to be, what the legislature's going to do. But there are several cities that are doing exactly what Vice Mayor Maliga is talking about, which is saying, okay, what we have is what we have, and that's all we want to have, and we're just going to change them into recreational plus medical, and we're going to try to close the barn door before the rest of the horses get in or get out. And if that's what you all want to do, we can have that ordinance ready soon.
yeah, I mean, it's not crazy if we have 2 in the city that, you know, I mean, if you want it, you can get it, is essentially, right?
And that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, if they want to sell recreational, that's great. They're already here. They already have the infrastructure. I'm not saying take that from them. I'm just saying protect the city from having more pop up or more. Either they are non-conforming, like William said, which that always confuses me because I'm not a lawyer.
Oh, but you play one on TV. Yeah, I mean, if people want to get it, it's, you know, again, it's better than the alternative of driving to the corner for a nickel bag. Chris?
This would be in the pop quiz category for me, so I'm not prepared to give an opinion one way or the other, but I do have a question. And that is, hasn't there been legislation recently going through Tallahassee that increases the availability of businesses to sue cities if they feel that cities are doing things that would interfere with them? I know the details. I'm not a business person, so I'm not about that, but my impression is that that is the case, and I wonder whether this would be a great way to open us up to those kind of.
Glenn, I think it's because it's non-conforming and because the law hasn't passed yet. Is that that's kind of what Elizabeth told me?
Yeah. I understand Commissioner McVoy's concern. I don't think it really will be an issue because right now it's not allowed at all. So you're acting during a time period where it's not allowed. So if you're going to do this, it'd be good to have first reading before the November election so that you're at least in process of restricting something before it's authorized.
Mhm. Well, Chris, your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry, no, I don't have any more insight to add to that.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Plus,
mark
if we put it on the agenda, because we have to have 2 readings for it, don't we, for it to make it
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
ordinance? If we put it on the agenda, we will at least get some feedback from the citizens on how they feel about it as well, which is very important.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So do we
So
have,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
is there consensus to have the city attorney draft that?
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
Thank-
because it's not a complete ban, and yeah,
I appreciate you guys indulging me. It was just time sensitive, so I wanted to make sure because we didn't have a pre-agenda meeting a couple weeks ago. I wanted to make sure I brought it up.
I don't
Mhm.
think it's indulging. I think it's a smart decision to
Yeah.
think about the city.
Thank you.
And I would just reiterate, if the attorney feels it doesn't increase our exposure, I'll take that as reassuring, but that would be a caution.
Yeah, definitely.
right. Well, yeah, like Glenn said, if it's can't, and we're allowing something that is not at this point apparently allowed. So
Yeah, I'll look at that a little bit more, but I'm pretty comfortable, but I'll double check.
yeah, I mean, knock on wood, I've not heard about anyone coming to us about having restricted businesses, which let's hope it stays that way. What else? Anybody? Mimi?
No, I mean, I promised Jamie I wouldn't pop quiz anybody, so. I'm just still a little frustrated about the, I
Visual?
guess, yeah, just how everything kind of looks and the mattresses and, and the, furniture and, I just feel sometimes it falls on deaf ears and I know that it doesn't. And I'm assuming it doesn't, but it just gets frustrating. And, I don't want to go back to citizens and say, I hear ya, I'm saying it too, and I'm feeling ignored, but I kind of feel that way sometimes. So I don't know. It's funny because when Chris had his charrette type thing at the Haitian church,
Mhm.
that was one of the biggest things that came up. And it was actually your wife, Chris, that brought it up.
She
And
brings
so
it up regularly with me.
she brings it up regularly, exactly. So I know during budget season, I asked Jamie, do you need more people? Do you need more help? Do you need to increase the budget? And he said no. So I don't know. Does anybody else feel that way or is it just me?
I have, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, okay. We did actually agree at a previous pre-agenda meeting that we would ask staff to come back with a proposal for some sort of beautification campaign. I feel extremely strongly, and I had some discussions with some of the neighborhood association folks, that a beautification program will only work if it's got a very well publicized approach that says,
Yes.
this is the different stakeholders that we're reaching out to. This is what we expect this stakeholder to do. This is what we have budgeted for these stakeholders to do. And collectively, if we all do our part, we will get somewhere. And you've got to build the kind of the momentum and enthusiasm for it. So it's clear that he's going to do certain things. It's also clear that there's an expectation from residents, perhaps, or I think very definitely has to be targeted, culturally targeted to different groups that in a way that works. So it takes a bit of planning and doing, But I think if you do that, there's a reasonable chance of success. But
Right,
it's got to be something that everybody can see. Oh, okay, I see that Public Works is
right.
gonna do this. They're going to address mattresses. Residents are going to do this. Oh, okay, my responsibility is, yesterday I go out and I blow all the leaves from the street after they pick up the vegetation. And I recognize I have some flexibility, I can do that, but I blow them back into my yard. Everybody probably looks at me like I'm weird, but my yard can decompose them perfectly fine and it gets them out of the drains. Well, not everybody's going to be able to do that, but there are things that we can expect people to do. That's not a particularly good example because it's not appearance, it's drainage, but
It's also appearance.
It's very much appearance.
and
Yeah.
it's definitely
but I think that-
engagement.
I guess my thing is this, okay, so there's this specifically on Federal Highway. And every time you drive from my house downtown, there's couches and mattresses and Public Works comes and X's them and takes them away. And the same landlords or tenants put out the same crap the next day. And so I don't understand, maybe the fine isn't high enough. We're not deterring it.
Yeah. And or
Jamie, I see Jamie's hand is up.
I was gonna wait for Commissioner May to finish. I was just
No.
gonna mention, we're out there, like you just mentioned, all we can do is when the stuff is out, all we can do is spray it in sight and collect it and take it to the transfer station. But again, once we remove everything, if it appears again the next day, all we can do is the same thing the next day. And when it appears the next day, the same thing the next day. So there's really no end to it. So
but
like you're saying, maybe it's increasing the citations. There needs to be something that is a deterrent. So this isn't a continuous, non-ending thing, because we get the calls that, hey, there's illegal dumping, or there's a big pile of mattresses or this or that out here. I'm like, oh wow, we were just there yesterday and took pretty much the exact same thing. But
Right.
they don't see that you took it away the day before. They see that there's a new pile. We're like, okay, we'll get out there and get on that too. They see that gets taken away, but the next day there's another pile. So you get the phone calls again, and it's kind of like it's like this never-ending cycle. So
Well, we talked about moving bulk to the first Monday.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the cure-all, but I think that will help citywide because rental houses especially turn over on the last of the month and the first of the month. And I know that that's not the cure-all, but if we could at least start there and see and measure, okay, are we seeing less dumping because we're doing the pickup on the first and people don't have to hold it for 2 weeks, or they're not just dumping it randomly? I don't know, just a thought.
I believe it was the second and the third week that we were seeing the most. So there was really no right. And I know it makes sense that you would think that at the end of the month is when people would be evicted. And that would be the first week would be the week when everything is out. It's every week. And there is really no week that's light and there's no week that's heavy. It's throughout the month. So
Do
again,
you need another team to keep up with it?
Well, that sounds expensive. I was going to ask a slightly different direction. Do we need more from the legal end? If it's true that many of these are repeat landlord offenders, which I don't know if that's true, but I could imagine that it is. It sounds like whatever our mechanisms to lean on those people are not working very well. Can we work on that part of it? Because I think Public Works is doing what they can do, and I don't know that we have budget to give them a lot more staff, but we might have mechanisms to legally or citation wise or special magistrate or who knows what it is, fine level to increase the pressure, especially on repeat offenders.
Here's an idea. We passed an ordinance a while back about having every rental license has to have someone who's available, like, within, I think we did 2 hours. I'm not sure, which I've talked to the city to the city manager and to Troy about, where is that information available? It's in a file in the building department, which isn't really helpful if you actually want to do something. So we were talking the other day about, do we make that person's name and phone number available on the website? So if I've got, if there's a problem across the street with neighbors, I can call the person that's responsible for it? Or do we limit it to just city staff? And I don't have the answer. I'm just, putting it out there. But this might be something where that would be helpful, where, okay, hey, Bob, your place is, you got another mattress outside, to actually go directly to the owners
Mhm.
and,
Cause I
Well-
thought of that, just go, I'm so ready to just go knock on the door, and I know that's not a smart thing.
right, right. I have in the past, not since I've been mayor, but in the past, I have written letters to landlords and going, hi, you live in Boca. Would you allow this to happen in your neighborhood? A little bit of shame is not a bad thing either. And I think if we bring, if we perhaps maybe publicize, these are, it's more
it-
public
Jam-
out.
Well, and also, Jamie, do we just charge the amount that we have to pay to bring the stuff to the transfer station?
No,
Or is
so
there-
you,
Or
it
is there a
penalized?
fine plus that? Cause I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like, charge them $1,000.
it's a fine plus that. So it's basically based on
What's the
cubic-
fine?
It's based on the cubic yardage. So depending on how much you put out and what you put out, you're fined a certain amount. And then it's the total amount of the ticket also includes some other charges, because we have to cover our operational costs for the people actually doing the collection, the actual gas to the transfer station, the transfer fees for the dumping fees. So yeah, it's all
Right.
incorporated into the citation cost. It's not just.
So if I put out 3 mattresses, give me a rough estimate, what would that cost me?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to pull
I
up
don't think he
our
knows that.
schedule.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
Yeah,
if,
I've
can
done-
you, because I'm just trying to decide, like, for me, I would evaluate that. Is it cheaper just to say, screw it, I'll pay that price, I'll pay the price and you come take it away, versus me actually having to deal with it? Do you know what I mean? If the price isn't high enough, it doesn't deter the action.
and we're
Well,
assuming that the landlords know that this is going on, which is not necessarily the case if they're.
Which is not necessarily the case, yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm coming back to that,
The landlord list, I like that
find
idea.
them, do what we do, but also annoy them, call them, and I don't know who I don't know who makes that phone call. And maybe it's in our district, we're the ones that make that phone call, but, make it more uncomfortable for the landlords and inform them, because I do know, having worked with landlords for a long time, a lot of them don't even know, they don't live here. They don't see it. So,
Right.
but now we do have a person, and I'm assuming that's being implemented on the building department level, that they are getting a name and a phone number of somebody to do that. I think Mr. Perry assured me that that was happening. But let's use it. Let's not just let it sit in a
Yeah.
file. Let's use that information. So, and maybe this is something we should talk to our public information officer about. Maybe, Chris, you talked about it,
Oh,
right? You
that's
talked-
smart.
Let's make it a, and we've
What
talked.
if like a
Clean
TikTok?
and green.
Instagram,
Mimi keeps saying
think-
clean and green. Well, I'm sorry, Sarah.
What if we did like a TikTok informational video that the PIO
That's
could put out,
That's
like
what I'm saying. Let's
bad
make it.
behavior, like visuals.
Yes.
Great idea.
Yeah.
But
Because
it does need to be tied to, and here's the website where you can look up an address, and here's the contact number to call for that address. Because somehow you gotta, I agree with the idea of make that information, the 2-hour, 4-hour, whatever it is, contact information file available. I mean, obviously we gotta check with legal and find out if there are any constraints. with
public record.
but it's a public record, so make it available. And it's not going to work 100%. Somebody will say, well, I looked up this address and I called and they said, well, that's not me, and blah blah blah. But I agree that I think that's reasonable to put some pressure on, if it's coming from the landlords, which seems, or if they're responsible, whether
Or
it's,
the homeowners, either one.
Right.
well, homeowners are a little different if they're not renting. If it's a homeowner's just putting it out, I don't know how this would help, but
Well, same way. It
Well,
looks
you
bad,
can
it
still
doesn't
call them and
matter.
say,
Yeah.
hey, we live here too and we don't appreciate that.
And it's sometimes, and with that phone number, I mean, there's a gentleman has come to the city and is approaching about a really problem property on Pine Street by the cemetery. It's an empty it's owned by a church. I did the other day, I was trying to find out who do I call? Who do I call? Say, hey, fix this. Okay, it's owned by the church apparently, but the address is in Boca and the actual owner is in a warehouse in Brooklyn, New York. So
probably
I
not too
was,
aware of what's going
What?
on.
I'm
Prob-
sorry.
Not too aware of what's going on. So now you got a problem.
Right. Well, I'm going to go to the church that owns the property that's in the city, I'm gonna knock on their door and go, hey, dudes, come on, you wouldn't want this in your backyard.
Before you do that,
it's-
please consult with our legal team because there's another property they own that's in the middle of a foreclosure. So please call Elizabeth or code before you do that. I've been involved with that conversation. But before you do that, please get with legal in regards to another property that they own that I've been,
Well, I mean, if they're, you know, if these guys are bad landlords, all the more I want to talk to them. So, but Glenn will give me an idea. Hi, Glenn.
Jamie's got his hand up.
Jamie,
Yeah, so in the meantime, while we're looking at all that as well, I will go back through my solid waste team. We'll go back through our fees. I know our current citation fees and everything are on par with what you see in other communities that do their own collection. But we could look at potentially raising those if we think that that would kind of put us up there. But
I think that's okay. What do you guys think?
let's do it.
It's not deterring people at this point.
I think it could also be like on a case by case basis. If it's your first offense, this is your fee. If it's your second
Yeah.
or it should be escalated because
Is that doable, Jamie?
yeah, and I guess my next question would be really for, I guess, the clerk and Glenn. Obviously, as part of our budget process each year, the fee schedule is approved during that second hearing. And we typically only do that once a year, which is good for FY25. Are we able to, if we do decide to change some of the citation rates, bring that back to the commission for an amendment, I guess, to the fee schedule?
Yeah, you
Melissa?
Madam Mayor, yes, we have done that, Jamie.
Okay.
And then the resolution's updated and only the portion of the fee schedule that's changed is updated. And then, yes, that's been done a couple of times.
Okay.
Amy, I want to thank you for bringing that up. We talk, you know, we all like shake our heads, but thanks for bringing it up. And I think on a final note, I think as like we talked about, have the city make it a program. Clean
Yeah,
and green.
the PI is a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
watch, one tries.
What's PI?
the PIO, the Rebecca.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah. You know, getting it out, making it a,
Yeah.
making it, I think, okay, having the city make a commitment to figure every avenue that we can to, in 6 months, this place looks better.
Maybe Tiana they can start a contest for like a clean and green logo for Lake Worth.
Mhm.
I mean, we are an art community and then we can go with that, you know, I don't know. I just think that I agree with Chris that like, it's going to take the entire community. It's going to
Absolutely.
take everybody. It's going to take the city. But it has to be, it's about pride of ownership. And I think that it turns from, it's not my problem to, this is my city, you know?
Mhm.
And I think if people see other people doing it, they start to do it as well.
I
Like
agree.
if there's a little shaming when people are littering, they stop littering.
It's that broken window theory.
Yeah, yeah.
I also recommend though too, as electeds, like, yeah, if you see mattresses, send it in, but like 2 days ago, the alleyway off of 6th Avenue between South A and South B, I was sitting at the red light. You can't even, it looks like a forest. And I sent it to Mr. Perry and said, can somebody please get in here and handle this? Like you can't even see down the alley. And it's not one that's used for, you know, for passerbyers. So as a city, when we have property, we need to be better managers of that as well. Which sometimes
Yes.
makes me think like that for that alley, should we be going to those owners and saying, you know, maybe we should need to give that alley and cut it in half and give it to each owner on each side because we're not maintaining it. It's all grass. It looks like a forest. You know, and that's right off of 6th Avenue South. So I think as electeds, when we see stuff like that, you know, to bring it to the attention because we do have limited staff and they are everywhere and they are constantly working. But
Right.
I used to send Jamie stuff when he was just handling public works director. I'm like, I'm sorry to do this. He's like, no, he's like, we need it. Please send it to us because we're not everywhere. We don't see everything.
Sure.
So we're gonna make it.
Wait, hold on. Isn't there like an overall schedule of mowing for the alleys? It can't just be whack-a-mole.
Yes. And there's a coordination between, one of the city's contractors, as well as Davy Tree, which is the utilities contractor, which does a lot of the trimming away from the power lines on the actual.
Right.
So it's a coordination between multiple contractors and the city's grounds department.
But there's like a schedule, like if you looked, you could say, oh yeah, that one's scheduled to be mowed on September 8th.
And tell
Yeah,
them.
I don't have access to it right now, but yes.
But is there one? I don't care when it is. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's not like an actual September 8th. It's basically based on a week. Like you know how many times, like
So we're
every
gonna
other, whatever it is, it's based on a frequency.
But
We're
might
gonna
not
make
be
this a
down to the day.
global effort from the citizen standpoint, from the city standpoint, make it public. I love the idea of a campaign for a logo. We have very talented people here. I have to go because I've got to switch off, I'm doing a hearing in 30 seconds, in a minute.
Well,
And
good luck.
yeah, so do I. I've got a Treasure Coast meeting that starts in also 30 seconds.
Okay, thanks, everybody. And again, Mimi, thanks for bringing that up. Good.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
for the hard
discussion.
work, Jamie. I'm not slamming the public works.
No, absolutely.
just
This is what
asking
we
the
need. This
questions.
is the information we need to know. So that's
Right.
why these meetings are very beneficial. So
All right,
Great.
guys.
Well, thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
good.
Have a
Okay.
great weekend. See you. We have a new meeting. We have another meeting. Was it Monday on the beach?
Yes.
Okay.
Beach
Everybody
Monday, Lobbyist Tuesday.
Yay.
Yeah, all right. More
Bye.
fun for
All right.
more
Happy
fun
week-
for us. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.